Hello, this is Truth Be Told Transformation, and I'm Bonnie Burkert, here to share tools for transformation to live your highest truth. One thing that's true for me is I love to acknowledge the changing of the seasons. I feel it's an observation of energy, the quickening of energy, and certainly the celebrations that go around the seasons and the changing of seasons are because of the sun. So let's talk more about that with somebody that I just had the pleasure of seeing when I was in Sedona for my birthday a couple weeks ago, Rahelio. Welcome back to Truth Be Told.
Well, hello, glad to be back. Good
Hi,
to see you, Bonnie.
Hi, Rahelio. He's got a beautiful background of Sedona. Rahelio's been a long time guide in the vortex areas of Rahelio, of Sedona, and he has created a fantastic vortex star map that you should be sure to check out on his website, rahelio.com, right? Are you .com or .net? I can't remember.
.com.
You are .com. So, spring equinox blessings to you, Rahelio. I know that I wanted to bring you on to talk certainly about the energy of a changing season and the natural world that you live in, but also as an astrologer, I thought you might have some words for us as well.
Sure, it's part of the cycle of life. We go through these cycles. It's like the day cycle, sunrise and noon, sunset, and midnight. Sunrise being the time of awakening. That symbolizes also springtime, the birth and coming forth. And so, yeah, we're right on the spring equinox. It's coming up pretty quick, and I'm glad for the opportunity for a new year beginning here with Aries.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at the distinction of the astrological calendar going with the seasons. So the new beginning of spring versus the Gregorian calendar being in January, which is kind of aligned with the winter solstice and the return of the sun. So I like really looking at how the energy has evolved these past couple of months of winter into this time of spring. So I'd love to hear your thoughts around that in terms of certainly the signs and the attributes that we attribute, the attributes of the signs and how they correlate with the months that they're in, as well as, in just any traditions. I know that, you're a man that has studied certainly, Native American traditions. And so I'd like to hear how you work with the winter into spring as well, both the astrology as well as Native American traditions.
Yes, when we look at our calendar, back in the day, Julius and Augustus Caesar put their months into the year. So July and August, and it threw the calendar out of whack. So when you have September, which means number 7, it got pushed to the 9th month. And October, which is number 8, pushed to the 10th month, November the 9th to the 11th, and December means 10th, so it's the 12th month. So our year is out of sync with the calendar. And then, winter solstice is the time of Capricorn, the dark of the year for the Northern Hemisphere. And Saturn has a rulership there. And whatever the traditions were from the past, the main thing about Saturn is mastering the limitations of the 3D world and how we establish our traditions and our, authority structure, our place in the social order of things. Like in a medicine wheel, the wintertime is when the elders have their time to speak and teach, and the younger generations listen to the elders. So that Capricorn time is that Saturn quality is that wisdom through experience, the tradition keepers, wisdom holders. And it's interesting that, like in the Christian idea, at the winter solstice, the sun god dies and the dark of the sun, and then 3 days later resurrects on Christmas Day. And then you look at New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve, at that time, at midnight, the brightest star of our sky, Sirius, is at the high point of the sky, at the place where the sun would be, the high point, and it's like the midnight sun, the star Sirius. And so we sing and we celebrate and we let go of the past and invoke the new year. And it's the spiritual guidance coming from Sirius. when the United States was formed as a nation, July 4th, Sirius was aligned with the sun at that time. So Sirius has a lot to do with the spiritual direction of, especially the United States, but the awakening of consciousness upon the planet. And so this idea of Sirius, this awakening power. And so through the winter, we go through Capricorn and Aquarius. Both of those signs are ruled by Saturn. And again, Saturn has like tradition and how we, it's very conservative influence, matter of fact, take care of business, no nonsense, don't take any risk kind of a thing with Capricorn. And then we come into the energy of Aquarius, which has a dual rulership. It has not only Saturn there, but also Uranus. And Uranus is like this revolutionary energy. It rolls on its belly and it's tipped away from the solar system, different than the rest of the planets. But Uranus brings in change and the unpredictable, and by bringing in that which is new, can lead us on a path to enlightenment consciousness. So the Aquarius theme is about inviting the future as we define the Saturn rulership, define our science, our technology, and define the rules of a game of life that we all agree to, that as a social conscious we are evolving into the future. This Aquarius energy can sometimes be revolutionized, a revolutionary breaking away from the status quo. And so the Saturn theme that rules Aquarius, you can find, like, if you don't agree with the consensus of the day, if you're too far advanced in the science of the day, they'll ostracize you. Like back in the past, if you didn't think the world was flat, they'd burn you to the stake. And so this Aquarius has a very conservative side to it. And you can find in social group dynamics, whether it's politics or whatever group, if you don't conform to the expectations of the group, they'll kick you out. You got to be like, you got to conform, the group conformity. That's the Saturn rulership of Aquarius. You know, kind of rigid science, rigid materialism, status quo. We can't accept anything that we can't prove for what we already know. And then brings in that Uranus energy, which is going to bring in a revolution of consciousness, new scientific inventions, technologies, and progressive consciousness. So to trigger this Aquarius theme, we have Pluto has now gone into the sign of Aquarius. Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto is the lord of death and transformation. The last time he was in Aquarius was back during the American Revolution. It's got a 248-year orbit. American Revolution and French Revolution, Industrial Revolution. It was a time of great social change. So Pluto's in Aquarius now. And also, we had an alignment between the planets Jupiter and Saturn. They were lined up in the first degree of Aquarius. That's a 20-year cycle. So kind of like a full moon cycle, a 28-day cycle, 14 days is like a full moon. So this 20-year cycle, we use 10 years of it and defines our social reality, how we are going to, the themes that are going to define the 3D world, our political, our social, economic, our philosophical, how we are, bringing into manifestation our vision or our creativity, our abundance. Jupiter being expansion and creativity with like entrepreneurial spirit, philosophy, and a quest for truth, and expanding horizons. Saturn, how we lay down the foundations of the 3D world, pay the dues, define ourselves, overcome the obstacles and limitations that define what is the solid ground for us. So these two lined up in the first degree of Aquarius on the winter solstice of 2020. The last time this happened in Aquarius was in the 60s. And in the 60s, we had quite the social revolution take place, the social revolution. So that's happening again this decade. We see a great upheaval within the social order of things. And it's the changes that are coming with it are coming faster than most people are even ready for, especially with the political dynamics going on in our country and the upsetting of the social order, the world order. And so this Aquarius theme, Pluto first touched into Aquarius where the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction took place 2 years ago, spring equinox. And that's when they were saying, the technology people, is stop with the AI and get some regulations so we don't lose control of it.
True. Yeah.
The AI. And so because of the the competition about who's going to have the best AI, they weren't able to really stop with it. It's pushing, they keep pushing it forward. It's advancing so quickly. So artificial intelligence is on the verge of becoming more sentient. It already is sentient, becoming much more self-realized. And with the introduction of the robots and the quantum computers and this new technologies, it can bring in free energy, clean energy technology. It can bring in, new forms of batteries, and technologies in general are going to be revolutionized before this decade is up. And the last time Jupiter and Saturn were in Aquarius, the Sun and Moon were there, and Mercury, Venus, and Mars. They had the grand alignment in Aquarius. That was when that social revolution of the '60s, the song "The Dawning of the Age of Aquarius" came out.
Right.
This is the Dawning of the Age of Aquarius, sung by a band called the Fifth Dimension. And so the fifth dimension is that's kind of what the future is bringing us to the fifth dimension. We are opening up our possibility, or our consciousness, to a fifth dimensional realignment, bringing in the future a path of enlightenment consciousness. But before we can get there, we're having a breakdown of the social order. Everything is going through this breakdown, and the old ways of doing things, the old ideas around science and quantum physics, and even the nature of psychology and social institutions, everything's breaking down. And it's a very vulnerable place for people to lose their support systems, and what they've known has been secure for them, to take a jump into the unknown, into the future that's coming. It's coming very quickly. So so the sun is still in Pisces. It's getting ready to go into the equinox of Aries, and it's with Neptune. And the moon, its orbit, it makes like the moons and nodes circle the globe about 19-year cycle. And the moons and nodes went from Aries into Pisces, and they aligned with Neptune. Recently, when Venus was there, and now the sun is there, and Saturn is coming up on it also with Neptune. So Neptune in Pisces themes are like what we feel, a sense of empathy and oneness or compassion with the circle of life, with our relatives in the circle of life. So institutions of Pisces are like the churches and the hospitals and the nonprofit organizations and the social welfare and things around social security and the things that deal with mental health and workers' rights, the right to have unions, and cooperation and emerging, coming together as one. Now, the Pisces theme, Pisces can be very compassionate and very caring, natural as healers and counselors and spiritual guides, very creative and imaginative time. So this Neptune and now Saturn in Pisces has been about a lot about what do we believe in, what's our faith in, what's our truth. And when people begin to feel more insecure about changes, they go kind of to their traditions to give them security. And so we've seen a religious movement to the right, which is very conservative. And if you look at the, say, religious traditions coming from the biblical, you'll find in the Old Testament that in some places God is very compassionate and very loving. In other places, God is very harsh, very judgmental, very angry, vengeful, and jealous God. His teaching was an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. This is quite contradictory to Jesus, who taught, love thy neighbor as thyself, judge not lest you do another as you want done to you, judge not lest you judge yourself. He said, love God, body, mind, soul, and love neighbor as self. But this other version was speaking of fear God and God's wrath and God's anger. And so what's happening is that the idea of what do we believe in is coming up to be questioned. Like, what is the truth behind this idea of God in the Old Testament? And so many researchers now are coming out with the interpretations of the Sumerian tablets written 6,000 years ago, and then Babylonia, 4,000 years ago. All these ancient traditions that tell the story about the Anunnaki gods The Anunnaki gods were, they brought the human beings through genetic modification with using their DNA, brought the human beings in, and the Old Testament God is not one God, but he's a composite of several gods. This is like the duality of Enki. He was the benefactor for humanity. He was the one that oversaw the genetic modification and bringing the human beings in, at least this lineage of human beings. And Lil, who came into the scene, and he became given the control, and he had the power, and that created a rivalry between him and Enki. So Enlil is the god of the Old Testament who's very angry and jealous and vengeful, and the god that's loving and compassionate and trying to help the humans and nurture the humans. That was Enki. So this idea of fearing God and this eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. If somebody does you wrong, you're required by the law to do them back. And this idea of somebody trespassing against the law, they would stone them to death. And so you have something like Jesus saying, "He without sin cast the first stone." And turn your other cheek, resist ye not evil. Seek first the heaven within, and love God with body, mind, and soul. So Jesus' teachings were coming from this higher, fifth dimensional and higher level, unconditional loving God, where the Old Testament was linking to the gods with the little g, and the gods, they had warfare taking place amongst them. And because they had warfare going between them, we see subsequently our religions going to war with each other. And this is a theme that's still going on with the idea of religious war. And it's all tied into prophecies and things like that. Pisces is the end of the circle. So what do we believe in? What's our truth? And so the idea of Pisces, where we are, drop our boundaries and we become one with each other, there's a thing about having healthy boundaries. When we don't have healthy boundaries, then we have all this upheaval about immigration, and let's push out the illegal immigrants. Saturn's in Pisces, so we want to put boundaries on it. We want to cut away from social welfare. We want to cut Social Security. We want to cut programs, that are supporting, like social welfare programs, U.S. aid and things like that. So this Saturn is trying to, put the boundary on it, and it's like more nationalistic in nature. It's trying to trim our government and all the social support systems. And you see this themes happening all across, the world. But because the Neptune in Pisces maybe everything got too watered down, and the globalization people begin to lose sense of national pride and feel vulnerable that their nation's identities are being watered down by too many foreign cultures coming in. So this Pisces theme, though, is also raising people up to touch into the greater, to the presence of the star people, this Aquarian theme of the star people coming in and wanting to be a assistance to help us move into a future time. So Neptune is getting ready to go into Aries. The sun's going into Aries. Neptune does it on the last day of March. Really, it's kind of like April Fool's Day. Really, the 1st of April. Neptune into Aries, the sun into Aries. And that's, and the outer planets, Pluto going into Aquarius, and also Uranus is leaving Taurus and going to Gemini. So when planets leave their sign, it creates a shift in reality into the next energy pattern of the new sign. And so before we leave a sign, the very last degrees are kind of like where you got to learn the lessons of that sign. It's kind of like being in high school and getting to 12th grade. You got to pass the exams to get out of high school, to graduate that school. So the end of the sign is the end of the school of that sign. And so I talked a little bit about that with the Pisces already. Uranus in Taurus has been a lot about, Taurus is all about our self-reliance and our resources, our security themes, our finances, our survival ability, our food systems, our values, what supports and sustains us, survival frequencies, themes. And so Uranus and Taurus, this is this whole idea of Bitcoin and this currency that is a cyber currency, cyber themes, financial realities being transformed by this technology. The technology is changing our economic system. It's a 7-year cycle. But see, Taurus is also an earth sign. It deals with nature, survival in nature, our food systems. They're trying to modify our foods with, new technologies and give birth to food that they can, kind of like a sci-fi story where they can have some living tissue that they can create artificial meat and all this new kind of things about what sustains us. And um, survival ability. We're having, with the earth changes, bigger storms and fires, the tornadoes and hurricanes and the flooding and survival abilities. Like, these are lessons we have to learn as Uranus is finishing up its journey out of Taurus. And are we going to have a new currency? And are we going to rebuild the new cities or new technology, smart cities, or do we have building methods that are can withstand the changes in the weather? Uh, uh, like how insightful are people going to rebuild after they've been destroyed? And also, a lot of the building materials are very toxic. You've got like formaldehyde glues in the wood, the plywood, and chemicals, and these toxic things that people are going like, it's not sustainable to build our homes like this and to create a healing environment to where we're not being poisoned by our technology, our Wi-Fi, and smart meters and things like that. So there's all this going on, and people are bringing in new ideas that are maybe solutions to these problems. As Uranus leaves Taurus and goes into Gemini later this year, I think July. During the American Revolution, Uranus went into Gemini. And so Gemini brings in the new information. That's going to be the supercomputer technology. Our technology is going to just springboard after Uranus goes into Gemini. Already Pluto in Aquarius. And communication dynamics, maybe even, I think it's going to have a lot to do with more appearance of UFO phenomenon. Extraterrestrial communications are going to be happening in the next 3 or 4 years like that. We're just going to have so much new revolutionary stuff coming in that before the decade's up, we're going to be living in a science fiction reality, and maybe the robots will be out in the next 2 years, and they'll be domestic, and they'll be in the, driving the trucks, and they'll be in the factories and working as hospitality in the hospitals as nurses. The robots are coming, so everything is in a big change we're going through, and I think that Neptune in the Aries with Saturn's going to catch up there, and that's happening this year also, and so it's like a whole new belief system. I was looking at the last time Neptune went into Aries, that was during the Civil War. Aries is more independent minded, breaking free, headstrong, more bombastic, more independent minded. And then the states succeeded from each other. So is that a theme that we're coming into with the United States, that the United States could become, like the South and the red states could divide from the blue states? But is that a possibility? That's a real possibility. There's a possibility they could have a civil war if things didn't go a certain way. Here, that is a possibility. But hopefully there's going to be enough wisdom and conscious people that can find solutions to work this out, even though our country is very, very polarized, red and blue. And then those of us who are purple, who are like, want to bring in the violet ray, bring in the transformation of the higher frequencies in. So, yeah, springtime is coming, and it's tomorrow, I guess it is. So it's a chance for all of us to face this new year, the spring year, and as the weather gets nicer, people are going to be out and about, and I think we're going to see a lot of people in the streets and protesting, hopefully peacefully protesting, controversy within our politics. There's a lot of disagreement about where a country's going. And if you watch the different perspectives, like the right-wing media, they have a whole different reality based on what the left-wing media is showing. So there's no communication going on between these two sides, and they don't understand each other. And now there's some truth on both sides, but we're looking at the idea of democracy, and is democracy going to is going to die? Or are we going to step up and preserve our democracy, and everybody have a voice to say what we agree to versus oligarchs controlling the narrative and controlling the media to where they can censor what they want to get out, but they don't want to allow anything being spoken that they don't agree with. So we're in a delicate time, and so therefore we just keep doing our ceremonies, doing our prayers, we're doing our sweat lodges. Other people having to wake up and asking the divine to bring in the guidance and the blessings that we need to guide us into the future. So I'll let you go from there.
Fabulous. Wow, there's so much there, Rahelio, and I encourage everybody to maybe have a second listen to that. The shows are archived on YouTube and wherever you hear your podcasts. There's so much there. Thank you for this. And I guess I just want to talk, you were talking about the spiritual practice, Rahelio, and I mean, you and I both in our own unique ways have been on this path for decades, right? And so how do you feel as you see this great divide? There's so many people, and there's a show like this, for example, that can connect you with people all over the world to hear your ideas and your wisdom. And yet we find ourselves in this really challenging time, which often feels very unconscious. So you're talking about the conflict. We're not a United States at all right now. And, things like poisoning our planet and ideas like that. So how do you reconcile that? There's more people than ever that are interested in the spiritual path. There's so much information to be had, and, outlets like this. And yet we find ourselves in this situation. How do you feel about that? What do you think?
Well, we are coming into a time of great awakening. It's a prophecy time. So there's a quickening taking place with our modern technologies and access to information. There's this greater awareness taking place on the global situation. The problem is that people who are controlling the narrative are creating the divide. Like, we don't have one source of news that is putting the facts down. Now, some of the sources of information coming out are very, very biased and very distorted in the facts that they're presenting. Who is the fake news and who is the propagandist, Yeah. And so on both sides there is some of that going on, but there's definitely a lot happening that is misleading people at this time, that is purposeful to keep us divided. Because when we're united as a collective conscious, a social conscious, a national conscious, then we can make changes that benefit the people. But the powers that be that control this country, this world, and the financial motivations they have and the products they're presenting, they'll put energy behind whatever it is that will keep us from, looking at what the real problems are. Instead, we get stuck fighting about the social issues that are important, but they're secondary in importance. It's like, so therefore a person has to be able to recognize that they could be being programmed into a belief system, and don't see the full picture of the story because of the narrative they've been being fed. And it's like they always talk about holiday gatherings, don't talk about religion and politics. That's what people get pissed off. So I try not to go there, although I do, sometimes. But we all have to take responsibility for our choices we're making. And if what we're doing is hurting others and creating bad karma for our nation or for our communities, then we have to question what we're doing. The problem is that they find that when you have an authoritarian dynamic, that people will fall in line against their better judgments, and they will not listen to their own wisdom, their own right and wrong, and they'll do things that can eventually be looked at as war crimes and other crimes against humanity. So, we all have to listen to, what's the truth? What's the truth?
Right.
Like even the Nazis, they profess to be Christian. So in the name of Jesus, many crimes have been committed.
That is true.
Especially against like people, indigenous people, people of color. There's been this religious superiority, nationalism superiority that has tried to oppress people. And so now, like the Native people say, like now that the Indian people have been through this, you might say, oppressed by the system, they say you're all becoming Indians too now because you're all under that system, and so there are those powers that be that can they're not looking out for your greater good and can oppress you if they want what you have.
Fascinating. Full circle. Karma, comeuppance. So you mentioned the word prophecy. I wanted to ask you, to my point, we've been trying, dawning of the age of Aquarius. We've come a long way since the 60s, for sure. And yet we still find ourselves oppressed. There's the overlords are, shutting down the light in some ways. Was this foretold? You hear about different prophecies. Maybe we're at that changing of the great ages, the yugas. I know there's so much happening right now in this month. So I just wanted to ask, do you just feel like this is the path of mankind, and we have to learn our lessons and go through this to, shake out the bad to ultimately get to that higher fifth dimensional consciousness?
We're dancing in duality. So when we swing to the right, and when people say, we don't want that, that's not giving us the answers. Then we swing to the left. And then the people say, like, well, we're not getting the answers there either. And we swing back to the right, we swing back and forth.
Yeah.
And so we have this pendulum, this yo-yo thing going on. And as long as we're divided, then we're going to be pulled that way until we can come into a direct perception of what's the right thing for everybody. And so prophecy, ancient people have had these prophecies. Speaking of this time we're coming into now, I have been a student of prophecy. I've been fascinated. I got my awakening took place back in the late 70s. I had my awakening in the late 70s, and I was all through the 80s. I was studying obsessively and learning about prophecies, and I was learning astrology, and I was learning shamanic wisdom, and I was accelerated on my path to waking up. And so, what amongst the many things I experienced, and I had many supernatural experiences. One of the big ones was I had a UFO encounter when I lived on Maui. And with the UFO encounter, I had a close encounter with the ship. And it came down and hovered right over my head about 40 yards above me. And it hummed a high pitch. Ooh.
Wow.
My friends were in the house. They came outside and they saw me out there with the UFO over me. And they said, Rahelio, it's a UFO. And so I laughed to myself because I know it's a UFO, but I'm thinking it's not a plane. It's like a wing with no nose or tail, and planes don't hover like that. It's not a helicopter because helicopters don't make that sound, and it doesn't have that propeller go ba 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 ba. So it's like they're saying it's a UFO, and I'm laughing to myself because I know it's a UFO, but my rational mind doesn't go there.
Yeah.
In other words, our rational mind will not accept what it doesn't believe in. So we can have the truth right in front of us, and we can still be in denial of the truth. That's why you can't convince people the truth. They have to experience it for their own or intuit it for their own, because it doesn't do you any good to talk to people if they don't want to hear.
Yes.
Their ears are closed. But for me, this opened up my mind to this presence of the UFO people, the star people. And that UFO just tip on its side and disappeared. In a split second, it was gone. And then a week later, I had an encounter laying in my bed, my head ringing high pitch. And after 3 nights ringing, the third night, the back of my head began to hum and vibrate. My crown chakra opened up, and a beam of energy came down my crown, came right down into me. A pure bliss energy came down into me.
Beautiful.
And these women said to me, just relax and go with it. We are balancing your energy. Just relax and go with it. So they put this healing energy into my body. 3 years later, I came to Sedona. And when I got to Sedona, the day I arrived, they beamed into my mind. A flame that tapped me on the forehead in my meditation. Tap, 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 tap on my mind's eye. For about 20 seconds, it penetrated into my brain, into my pineal gland, and opened my crown chakra, and they began to speak to me telepathically. And they said to me, this is where you come to do your work. You're to be a spiritual guide. There'll be thousands and thousands of people coming looking for answers. So you're to answer people's questions. Speak of love and inspiration. There is going to be a great awakening coming. Has been prophesied by the ancient cultures from around the world. Has been prophesied. They said that there's going to be the great awakening come before the next great earth changes come. Because the earth is going to go through another reset. The earth is going to reset itself. And so it's a great change is coming, a cataclysmic change is coming. But before it comes, we're going to have this great awakening. Now, some people believe that the earth is actually going to split, that the higher frequency of the earth is going to depart from the lower earth. There's going to be 2 earths. Earths are going to separate. And the people who can't go to the higher frequency, the 5th dimensional unity consciousness, who can't go there, will stay with the 3rd dimension and go down with it. And that may be what it is. They said the ancient prophecies will be, coming to fulfillment. Ancient prophecies from all over the world, the ancient cultures, they said. So they did say that our minds create our reality, that our minds are going into the quantum level, and that what you think you manifest. So you cannot create beauty and heaven on earth if your mind is full of fear and duality and judgments and negative self-talk or projecting anger at other people. I mean, so many people who are the patriots that are fighting for take down the deep state, they have so much anger and hatred in them. They're fighting their own shadow is coming up, and that's the illusion, their attachment to fighting the dark force.
Yeah.
That's why Jesus said, resist ye not evil. Because you start fighting with evil, what you think is evil, now you are dancing with it, and it's inside of you.
Yeah.
That's how people create war crimes and do the wrong thing, because in their anger, they get self-righteous, and in that anger, they do things, their vibration is low. Say if we had a dimensional shift and everybody was angry and pissed off and fighting, and the shift took place, who's going to make it to the next levels? Not the people angry and fighting. They wouldn't be able to make it. It'd be the people who are at peace and have wisdom and have compassion and take responsibility for what they're doing. Even if they had to fight, they had to fight with a pure heart. Because as warriors of love, you have to fight to defend your home or your family. You have to fight. But you don't have to go evil with your fight and create war crimes and do things that you wouldn't want done unto you. So do unto others as you want done unto you. That's the teaching that Jesus gave. And he was master of the Piscean age. And now the Pisces age is ending, and we're getting into the transition to the Aquarius age. And so the new revelation is coming in. And the Aquarius theme is about the awakening of the masses, awakening to the Christ consciousness through the 5th dimensional understanding. Comes through our sun, the great sacred, the spiritual sun is coming through our physical sun, and through the sun is going to come a frequency of light. I think our sun's activated by the galactic frequencies, the heart of the galaxy is coming through. It'll come through our sun, and it's going to shift our reality in a big way. Now, when those frequencies come in, are these bodies going to transform and come into a higher frequency, and we take this body into the next dimension, up into the 5th dimension, and exist at that level? Or do we drop these bodies and move into a light body? That's the big question. Because, people who are receiving messages and channeling, they all say the spiritual guidance is all saying that Nothing to fear. It's all beautiful. It's all good. And, when people have died and come back to talk about it through the near-death experience, they have a similar story, the authentic stories, because there are a lot of fake stories out now. But the authentic stories, they say the same things. They say, I was scared to death to die. I crossed over. And the universe was pure love. It was pure love. The universe, pure love. And I remember this is where I've come from. Now, what am I doing? Clinging to my life in the 3D. I'm clinging. I can't let go. I'm afraid to let go. I'm stressed out with it. I'm burdened by it. I'm clinging to it. And now that I'm back here, I don't want to go back. I want to stay. But the people there say, it's not your time. It's not your time. You got to go back. But before you go back, we want to give you a life review. And with the life review, they see everything they ever did, said, or thought that hurt another person. But you see it through the other person's eyes. So you see you hurting yourself. Because you see you hurting yourself as you see you become them. And the people say, like, oh, I didn't realize I was so bad like that. And they go like, yeah, you were bad, but look at all the good you did. And then you see all the love and the joy and the happiness that you share with others, but you see it through their eyes. You see you loving you. You see you being good to you. This is the teaching of Jesus. Do unto others you want done unto you. As you judge others, you judge yourself. So in shamanism, we call that breaking the mirror of self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
We stop projecting our duality, our shadow, our anger, our hatred onto somebody else. Instead, it was like a ho'oponopono.
Mm-hmm.
Ho'oponopono says, I am one with this person's shadow. We are one. So forgive me, Great Spirit, for our shortcomings. Forgive us, human beings, for our struggles and this karmic ignorance. So forgive us, Great Spirit. I am one with this person who is suffering. They are one with me. They are a piece of me. So let me free myself from this struggle. And so often you can do that with somebody that you have a close relationship with, that things are going bad. Like, yeah, people have divorces and they used to love each other, but now they hate each other. And they blame each other, who's right, who's wrong. And so instead of doing this, projecting anger at each other, who's right and wrong, it's like, this is a mirror for me to see myself. I'm sorry that I shared negativity with you. I'm sorry that you're not able to hear me. I'm sorry that I'm trying to push my truth on you and I can't hear you. I'm sorry that we are in a karmic condition and not learning from it. You can heal your relationships by doing that. Ho'oponopono. This is Jesus' prayer saying, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive who trespass against us.
Right.
So Jesus' message is very important. Unfortunately, because of the dogma of the Old Testament religious belief, people have pounded their religious beliefs on the people, and people are repulsed by religion, that kind of religion. But when Christians are true Christians, they're just sharing love, and the family is sharing love, and the community is sharing love, and working together for the greater good of helping everybody. And that's the true Christian. So the Christians have to awaken to the power of love and walk the teachings of Jesus. Now, Jesus was like a Buddhist. He embodied and validated the teaching of the Buddha. And these great lords of light, they walked on the earth. Not just these two, but there are other great lords walked on the earth. Other goddesses walked on the earth and taught the human beings to live in harmony. For native people, star people walked amongst the tribes, teaching them love and the wisdom of the circle of life, that's all connected. There's unity consciousness, that every plant and tree has a medicine, has a consciousness, and the animals have a consciousness. And if you have to hunt them, speak to the spirit of the animal to ask permission to take the body, to take what you need, and be respectful, respect the circle of life, and do things that recognize that everything is in this quantum understanding, that we're all connected, we're all one.
Beautiful. Thank you. Such an important message, Rahelio. This has just exceeded my hopes of what all we would talk about. I mean, I went from like the changing of the season to the galactic order here, and really just a big reminder, a call back to our hearts. Thank you. Thank you for your wisdom. This is beautiful. Do you have any closing words for us as we move on? I know we're kind of in between the eclipses right now, and I think that, honestly, a message like yours really gives me hope.
Yeah, we have, a lot of division in our community and in some of our families too. Like, you might have a couple of people believe this way, right, and others even left. That creates a lot of stress in the home. So the idea is that for both sides not to be so attached to being right or wrong, but to say what's the common ground? Do we love each other? And that's the way to practice your ho'oponopono, like talking to the spirit of the person without trying to convince them that you're right or wrong, but just having love and forgiveness for each other, and talking to the universe, love and forgive us, universe, because we're in this duality and we forget who we are.
Very much.
And when you there was a fellow named Eckhart Tolle. He's kind of like a monk. He talks real slow and be in the presence of this moment and help people to get out of the chatter of their hyper nervous system and their mind going too fast. So he talked real slow and easy going like that. And I listened to him talk one time on one of his tapes, videos, and he was saying, "You think you got it all together spiritually? Go spend the holidays with your family." And
Right.
so quite often the family, when you're a young person having a spiritual awakening, the family doesn't want to recognize this new stuff that you are. They want to keep you in the box of who you used to be to them. And so all of our life, people that you may have known, they don't want to see you for who you are as you're awakening to this new self. They may want to keep you in this old idea with who you used to be when you were a teenager or when you were a younger person. And so we don't have to try to validate ourselves with other people's eyes. We don't have to try to convince people of our truth, because all that does, especially when it comes to politics and religion, is it creates more self-righteousness and conflict.
Yeah.
And we just have to just love each other and say, what do we agree on? What do we agree on? And when we find that people on the right may get disillusioned with what happens if we have the Social Security and the Medicare, the support systems getting pulled out from under their feet, and they start losing their support, they may not be so happy with where the direction of the country is going. And then those people on the right and the people on the left will say, hey, we have common ground now. And that voice, that common voice, can then kind of put a pressure on the authorities to do the right thing for everybody.
Yeah.
If we can find a common truth, not what we're against, but a common truth, then the people who lead have to follow. And if we don't do that, if we get divided by social issues that are secondary and not deal with the primary concerns, but it's hard when you have, like, say, an administration that wants to take back national park lands and they want to open up pristine areas for oil drilling and mining and raping of the earth versus you know the possibility that maybe our scientists can bring through clean free energy technologies, especially now that I think the star people are going to broadcast that through to us, and that keep looking up to the sky, because we're going to see more phenomenon going on there, and
Hmm.
more people are going to make a connection with this higher guidance. And you always got to trust the spirit, because test the spirit, because there are false spirits masquerading as light. And you got to trust the spirit that it doesn't try to boost your ego up or tempt you. You got to trust the spirit that it doesn't make you, fear-based. If it's a fear-based teaching, it's not real, because this body will die, but this spirit's going to live on forever. And if you know that you come from the heaven realm, from the higher dimension, it's one thing to know it intellectually, but when your body knows it, when your body can finally realize your connection to the source, then you can let go of all these fears and the drama and not get caught in the crisis of the times we're living in. You can
Please.
walk in your peace,
Yeah.
and as the frequencies quicken, you can be a light to those around you. And if enough of us can step up into that wisdom, nature, that light, it'll shift the social consciousness, the collective consciousness, and give birth to this new age that we're on the threshold of.
Incredible. Walking in beauty, right? To use a wonderful Native American term. And so we're all being called to do that, right, Rahelio? Thank you. I know
Oh,
you've been doing that. Oh, I really appreciate your time. This has been amazing, everybody. Rahelio.com. Just find him. And if you have a chance when you're in Sedona, he guides beautiful tours and I was thinking about the great unifiers, and I feel like nature is one, and perhaps those star people might be another one that helps us unify, right, and come together and as above so below. Maybe it's like we need the great land, but we also need the great mystery to come in and
Yes.
help people know the truth
Above and below, huh?
and bring us together, right? No, it's incredible. Thank you. Happy equinox. I look forward to seeing you again. I'll definitely be back out to your beautiful land sometime soon.
Thank you.
God
God bless you.
Cheers, everybody. Truth Be Told Transformation. I'm Bonnie Burkert. Tony Sweet. Truth Be Told, every Friday, 3 p.m. on YouTube. The community gathers for live chats, so I hope you'll have a chance to see his latest guest and say hello. Also, Robert Hensley has the show on rewilding, Truth Be Told, rewilding. So again, getting back to nature, which I think is one of the themes that we are I'm closing with right here. I do feel that as we go through the crazy, get out there, be present with nature. The changing of the season gives us an opportunity to do that. The days are getting longer, the light's returning, the sun is warming, the flowers are coming. Take a moment, breathe, find that meditation, and I think find that equanimity in all of this. I think is a big message that Rahelio just gave us. Things to think about. We're here to share, everyone, so we hope that you'll do the same for us. Let people know that our shows are out there. Again, YouTube as well as all the podcast networks. Truth Be Told, thanks for listening. And until the next time, shine on.